and welcome to Come Alive with Us. Today we have Sean Conley, and I'm so excited to have Sean on. We met through LinkedIn, which I feel like is such an advantageous way to meet people in today's new normal. I was really impressed with his LinkedIn posts and just his approach to empathetic leadership. So I'm so excited to have him on and garner his insights. Welcome.
Oh, Jordan, thank you so much. Thanks for the invite. And I'm so happy to hear that someone actually reads and looks at my LinkedIn post. You made my day.
Absolutely. No, they're great. It's great content. So, Sean, if you could just give a little bit of background about yourself, your career, your focus, that would be really great.
Sure. I've been in the leadership or learning and development space for just over 40 years now. And sometimes when I say that, I'm like, wow, it's a long time. And I have seen all the changes in the industry of learning over the years. And I'm still excited to this day about, where learning is and where development's going. And all through my career of learning, I've been associated with some really amazing organizations, as well as also having my own consulting business for several years. And so I grew up in the hospitality business. And, many, many years ago was working in restaurants. My folks actually used to own and operate restaurants. So I kind of grew up in that business. Went to work for a national restaurant chain, did that for 13 years and opened up, several different, about 160 restaurants, I think I opened for them. And then I decided it was time for me to get out of the restaurant business. And I went into the theme park business, and I did a little bit of time at Disneyland Resorts and then also Universal Studios Hollywood. Those were great years where I learned a little bit about more than just the restaurant industry. And so I got to see how other businesses run. Through a series of mergers, I ended up in Europe for 6 years. I lived in London, and I was the international learning leader for NBC Universal at the time. Came back after 6 years through another merger and decided it was time to branch out and go on my own. And I started my own business, Conley Global, which is really focusing on leadership development, team dynamics, people development, coaching, and have had that business for many years, variety of different clients. And then I was actually asked to go back into corporate, and I thought I'd retired from the corporate world and was asked to go back into another organization. And I said yes. I thought about saying no, but I said yes because I decided I really missed being part of a team, being part of a change within a larger scale. The world of a consultant is great because you get a lot of freedom, but you also aren't part of something, and it's always nice to be part of something. So I joined Baker Hughes for 5.5 years. The last 2 years was the chief learning officer for the organization. And then through a series of transformation and other things, I have departed that role and kind of took a learning advisory role with the organization, and then really back to focusing on the consulting world. And then we'll see where that leads me. So many people always ask, like, what's next? And I'm like, I don't know. I will let it unfold, and the world will unfold as it should. And it's a great place to be because, I think after so many years and so many industries, I don't panic anymore. And I just know, if you do great work and great things, you'll get recognized at some point, and maybe that's my own business, maybe that's going back into another business, but we shall see. But it's been a journey.
I love that. That's awesome. And I love just, that you've had the experience of both consulting and then working in a team environment, and that you're just kind of going with the flow because that's how, it should be.
Well, I think so. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And so many people try to map out and plan everything down to the minute, and which might be great, but I rarely see all those plans come alive. Yeah, because people just like, this is what I have to do. And it's like, if you have a mindset of, I can do a lot of things, then I think the universe starts to unfold in many different ways, and you start to see paths that you never thought you would take. And to me, that's what's exciting about life, and that's what's exciting about being able to find a skill or a craft that you love and just give it to everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. That's great.
Yeah, and it's also really fun, Jordan. I think in this day and age, so many people have lost the joy
Mm.
in in the work that they do, and leadership, all aspects of businesses. And to me, that's really sad. It's
Yeah,
sad people don't have the happiness and the joy. And and I think when you lose that, you're not giving back to an organization, you're not leading an organization in the right way. But there's so many people that just kind of go through the motions, and
right.
I'm just not one of those people.
Oh, well, that's why I'm glad you're on.
Yay, thank you for the invitation.
Yes, definitely. Well, so let's dive into a lightning round and then we'll get a little deeper into the questions. Starting out, could you name a book or resource that has had a profound influence on your approach to authentic leadership?
Sure. So I will tell you, the book it's called The Body Shop. It's by Anita Roddick,
Okay.
and she passed away several years ago. But I kind of grew up in the early '80s when the body shops were all over the place, and I met Anita Roddick a few times, and it's not like she would know me or anything at the time, but I admired the tenacity and the love for what she did and how she started a business basically with nothing. And the reason I mention her is because what had a profound impact on me was I met her at a speaking engagement once, and she was doing a book signing. And she signed my book, and I still have it over here somewhere. And she said, "Be courageous. It's the only place left uncrowded." And to me, that was one of those moments where you're like, wow, that's kind of it. Is I can be courageous, which means I can step up and step out and do things in a different way. And I truly think that's how she, lived her life and her career with courage. And that stuck with me. That was probably 30 years ago. And it's always stuck with me.
That's very profound.
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of profound things that I think she did as a female pioneer in an industry. Um, the world changes and things like that. But back in the day, it was really a testament to hard work, courage, passion, drive, tenacity, all things that I think sometimes get overlooked these days, but so
Absolutely.
really important.
That's really cool. I'll have to check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a simple book. It's really just about the origins of her business. But it was that moment when she signed it that really changed everything for me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing. So, who is your favorite authentic leader and why?
Great question. There's a lot of people. I'll mention a name, but I want to mention what I feel makes people authentic as leaders. It's when they again show up with courage, but when they're true to themselves and they have values and they share those, but they also lead with compassion and kindness and are very astound business leaders. And so the one really that comes to mind is a gentleman. His name is Eddie Cunningham. And I had the pleasure of working with Eddie at NBC Universal, or working, on his team. It was in the home entertainment business, which is the DVD business. He is still leading another organization to this day and age, but he's someone that he really values and respects the work that I do in learning and development, and really focused on how he can develop his people. And the more the team grows and develops, the better they are. And he's led an industry through change, which is amazing. But he's never forgotten how to be kind, and he's just brilliant. And I hope he enjoys me saying that, because it's really the truth. And to find people like that, and there's so many other people I could mention, but he really stands out to me.
I love that, remembering to be kind. It's so important and often overlooked.
It is, and I think a lot of times in business, we get so caught up in the complexity and strategy and the busyness and the customers, and we forget that people make the business happen. And
Mhm.
when you can do that, and kindness isn't weak, compassion isn't weak, empathy isn't weak. These are strengths. But oftentimes they get overlooked because people go, oh, well, we don't need to do that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
you do actually.
Right.
And you can succeed beyond your wildest expectations if people feel of value and valued in an organization. And
Right.
if you can lead them through tough times and complex times, but if you can lead with compassion and with kindness, it truly changes everything.
It does.
I
Yes.
feel bad because I didn't mention a whole bunch of other leaders, and there's so many people like they're like, what about me? But they're like every single, honestly, like every leader I've had, from my most recent ones to previous ones, like everybody's had an impact on me though
Mhm.
in many many different ways, and so I don't want anybody to think I didn't mention them,
Oh,
but
no.
it's important though because I learn from everybody.
Right. I think that's so important. You want to surround yourself with people that you're constantly learning from.
Yeah, it's choice. It's a choice that that I made. Is if I can't learn and grow, then why would I do something? It's a
Right.
chance to do that, and I hope in some way that I've been able to impart some of that to the people that I've led, the teams that I've led over the years.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of learning and growing, what's one daily habit that sets leaders up for success?
I think it's leaders who can step away,
Mm.
and have a life, right? Like whether you, and I don't know, I don't call it work life balance. I just call it work life focus because we have to focus on different things at different times. But, to be able to truly disconnect, what that does to me is it sets an example for everybody else in the organization. And it just takes a leader or a person that says, I'm not going to respond at midnight because I know if I do that, everybody else is going to panic, right?
Right.
And so we have to set those kind of boundaries, but leaders who can set those kind of boundaries. And that's not to say there are going to be times when you have to do certain things at certain times. But for the most part, if you can step back and let people know that you have a life, that you have a family or friends and you enjoy doing those kind of things, that it's not, you don't always have to be on, right? In
Mm.
business. And I don't know, maybe people would disagree with that, but I just truly believe it's a leader who can step back and then step back in. And that shows to me the real artistry of understanding the business side and understanding the people side of what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Step out and step back in. I like that.
Yeah, you have to. And I mean, it's just burnout if you don't, but you see it, right? You see leaders who are stressed and burnt out, and that just echoes through the organization. But if you
Yes.
can lead with kindness and lead in a relaxed way, it changes the mood of everything. And again,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean you're not going to have stresses, and it doesn't mean it's not intense, but when you can let people know, I'm going to disconnect now and I'm not going to respond, and it really sets a great example.
Yes, absolutely. And, you got to lead from the top, and really set that example for the organization. So, totally agree with you there. We spoke about your background, but I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit more about how you developed as a leader throughout your career.
Yeah, I think a lot of mine was what I like to call the school of hard knocks, where again, I started in the business world at a very young age. I've been working since I was, 15. And I I always tried to be good at something. And in the restaurant business, I was just a really good, I started off as a dishwasher, and I just tried to be really good, and I tried to be the best at that. And then you get recognized, and I was put into another position and moved into another position. But that was really that kind of craft to me, was just hard work pays off. And as I kept kind of working hard, I also learned along the way. And I've been a lifelong learner, and I've had really great people in my life. And I have a mentor. Her name's Denise, and she has truly been a mentor of mine for 30 years now. And it's that person that kind of recognized in me that I could turn the art of helping others learn and develop into a career. And so I've been very fortunate, to have great leaders, but to have a great mentor whose, career I looked up to, but now, we're peers. And I can go to her for advice and for thoughts. And, it's one of those people who I don't have to talk to every day, but when I talk to her, it's like no time has passed. But it's really kind of hard work, and surrounding with great people, and having somebody recognize what you could do. And then from there, I've just continued to grow and to learn and to take on new skills and try things out. And some things work, some things don't work. But that's kind of where my whole approach to leadership has come from, is just, humble beginnings,
Yeah.
and not forgetting where you came from.
Oh, yeah. That is so crucial, just remembering where you started and how you got to where you are. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, and being proud of that too. We've all have good stories and bad stories, but they make us who we are. We all have, dents and scratches and, things from life. But all of those add to the story that we tell and the person that we become. And so if you can, cherish those and be proud of those. I think a lot of people try to hide, backgrounds or mistakes or jobs they had. I tend to look at it the opposite. I'm like, every one of them has just been really cool and helped me get where I'm at.
I love that. Yeah. Just owning it.
Yeah, 100%. Don't be afraid to own it.
Don't be afraid to own it. Yes. That's a great takeaway. So thinking about recognition, you touched on that with your mentor. What are some things you can say to colleagues to make them feel empowered and encouraged with their work and self?
Oh, that's a great question. I think one of the things you can say are those simple things that we learn as young children, things like thank you.
Yeah.
And, it goes a long way, or help me understand, or wow, I love how you did that. Show me how, teach me. Helping, letting other people become your teacher or your mentor, your guide, is a great recognition for people. And then at the same time it's kind of the flip side of it too. When things aren't going right, is then you step in to provide feedback or thoughts on how we can do things in a slightly different way. But all of that, being able to give and receive, comes from having a foundation of trust with people. And a critical piece is, how do we establish trust amongst our colleagues, peers, families, all of it, right? Everything centers from that foundation, because if you have trust and you foster that and you nurture that, then the relationship blossoms. And we can, disagree and agree, whatever it might be, but we don't do it against each other. We do it with each other.
Right. Yes. Trust is so pivotal. It's the foundation upon which everything is built. So I totally agree with that. Yeah.
It's that foundation. I mean, I think if you sum up leadership, right? Like that's the foundation of leadership, is building trust in an organization, building trust with your customers and your clients, building trust with an industry. And that impacts your brand as a leader and as an organization. And your brand is that thing you want to protect all the time. And when that trust breaks, then everything else starts to unravel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. So true. So what strategies do you use to foster a sense of autonomy and responsibility among your team?
Oh, guess what the answer is? Trust.
I figured,
It's a great question. And I do think, and we could ask them, they could chime in, I suppose, in the comments at some point. Most of the teams that I work with, I hope that people would say, well, he trusted us. Like, I give people freedom because they're on the team for a reason. And part of that reason is for me to get out of the way and for them to shine and to exceed, their own expectations. But if you don't trust people, then you become that kind of micromanagement or that leader who kind of, points the finger, and that's not helpful. But you have to earn that, right? We have to earn the trust there. But I think when you surround yourself with good people and you trust them, that's how you give people autonomy. And then your job, then, at least as I see it as a leader, is then kind of, like when you go bowling and like, if you're like a young child or somebody learn how to bowl, they put those little bumpers up in their, the ball just bounces off. I think that's kind of your job as the leader, right? Is you become the bumpers and you just let the team kind of roll the ball.
Right.
And your job is like, okay, if it kind of hits over here, let's get you back over here. Let's kind of guide sometimes. But all along the way, they're rolling the ball. They're hitting, getting the strikes. They're making sure that the pins fall down. My job is just to kind of course correct every once in a while and not overdo that, but just to kind of know, like, that balance is okay, but let me help you out with this one over here. But then along the way is being able to sit with people and say, well, how was that? What did you learn? How did you get there? Because some of the best things I've learned aren't things that I came up with. They are things that other people, because they had that autonomy, they had the freedom and the drive to kind of, throw the ball down the lane. And you see the surprises like, oh my God, I didn't think we could do that, or that's great. And then also what's super important to me is you have to give them the credit for that too.
Yes.
There's tons of people out there that be like, well, I took the credit because that was my team. It's like, that's not my best advice or best approach, right?
Right.
That's okay. Let people have the credit. Like, the last organization I left, I had great leaders. And Deanna Jones, who was my leader for several years, said to me, the greatest thing you can do is leave a great team behind. And that's what you did. That's your legacy here at this organization. And that means the world to me, right? Is knowing that somebody has recognized the accomplishments of what the team has accomplished and knew that I helped kind of groom and guide, but I just got out of the way. And to me, that's it's such a blessing to hear those kind of words. And I'm forever grateful that she said that, because it just it warmed my heart, and it made me go, you know what? I've done what I needed to do, and that's okay. It's okay to be able to move on and walk away, because you are recognized for the legacy that you have left.
I love that, because that was one of my, questions towards the end, but I feel like you just nailed it. Talking about the legacy that, you leave, and the fact that someone, took the time to give you that feedback. That's, I feel, rare and speaks a lot to both your character and your professional experience. So that's amazing.
No, that's great. And I think it also speaks to other great leaders, right? A great leader can say to somebody else, let me show you what you did, because you don't even realize it, because we get caught up in the doing, right? But when somebody else says, listen, Sean, look what you've been able to accomplish. And that's what the role was. And now I can step out of the way and everybody else can grow. And then I can, do something else, which is really exciting. But that's the whole idea, right? Is had she not said that to me, I would have always been questioning, what was it? Why me? Why now? All that kind of stuff. But to have someone with a great deal of knowledge, but also deliver that with kindness and care and compassion, to me means the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really, thank you. That's a great story. And to your point, does speak to other, powerful leadership, being able to recognize that in someone else and not just recognize it, but vocalize it. So that's really amazing.
I think, Jordan, I was just going to say to that, like when I hear you say that back to me, that we need more leaders and more people to do that, right?
Right?
Not to be afraid, to recognize and let people know and help people see their accomplishments. And, think about how many times we don't hear that information. And that makes me sad, right? But when we can do it, and I love that you just repeated that back to me, because I'm like, wow, I've been really lucky. I've been really lucky to have some great, great role models, great leaders, and I could, go through a whole list. But to know that somebody recognized that and said it to me, makes sense.
Yes, that's so true. The second part, they recognize it, but they also vocalized it. You're so right. And, we definitely need more of that. That's amazing. I love that. So how do you incorporate empathy into your leadership approach? Could you share an example of how you demonstrated empathy, towards a team member facing personal or professional challenges?
I will, it's my version of empathy. Some people might say, well, Sean, that's sympathy or compassion. To me, it's all kindness and wrapped around there. One of the things that we did as a team, this is the most recent team over at Baker Hughes that I was part of and I helped lead, was during the pandemic. And, we went through this phase where we were all doing our jobs and all of a sudden everything stopped. What we did is, as members of the team either got ill or things like that, one thing that I tried to do is we sent care packages to people. And I didn't send the first care package. I just asked them, like, what do we do for people? Because my heart went out to folks. If you think early on in the pandemic, when somebody had COVID, you didn't know what was going to happen. And we didn't know what we know now. And so we just sent a dinner box over. And there were some great people on the team that researched and found one. And then I don't even know how many we sent. We probably sent, 15, 20, 25 care packages. But what I loved about it is other departments started doing the same thing. And they asked us what we were doing and how we did it. And that really warmed my heart. And, we went through a very difficult time. And on that team, family members were lost during those times. And being able to give people time to grieve and to step away. But we always felt like a family. And so we all went through it together. But that was kind of, I think, one thing that I think showed empathy was being able to step into somebody's shoes and say, how would I be feeling at this moment and during this time? And what would I need during, to make me feel just a little bit better? And so, it's taking that personal approach. And we didn't have, a huge budget. And there were times when I did it and put on my own credit card and, just didn't expense it, because that's not why I did it. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And it still makes me feel very happy, because so many people sent such, kind notes and thoughts about, we made their life just a little bit easier during that time. And then they sent me one too, when I lost a family member and I received a beautiful package. But I just thought, that's what it's all about, is treating people like people, and not just saying, okay, well, you only get 2 days off or what, whatever I mean, because it's more than a business. It's a family environment and helping people. So I don't know, that's an example that comes to mind about being empathetic.
Yeah, and treating people like people, seeing them as people and, thinking through what they need at that moment and what would really help. And, it's not like you just sent corporate swag. You really, put some intentionality behind it. And I think that that's really thoughtful and amazing that other departments did it as well.
And I loved it because they were like, which company do you use and how do you do it? And it's like, that was really a wonderful thing. Like, I think about that, and that was several years ago, and there's other things that maybe I've done, but that's really what got me thinking recently, Jordan, about how important empathy in leadership really is. And that's, how we met on LinkedIn. I wrote a post just about, I just something that happened to me, and I didn't even talk about the situation. I just said, I was thinking about this, and I wrote a post in LinkedIn just on empathy and empathetic leadership. And I cited an article that, had come out a few years before that basically said empathetic leaders or empathy in leadership is one of the top skills now for leaders. And it just struck me. And so I thought about what we just talked about, and I wrote just a simple article and just said, here's a few things that I think help us be more empathetic, listening,
Right.
our shoes, and understanding, treating people fairly, whatever. But I posed a question. I said, what are other things that we can do? And it's my biggest post I've ever had, right? I had so many people comment and repost it. And all that said to me was, we are onto something here.
Yes.
Because so many people, the article or the post resonated with people. And to me, that just said, that's that missing piece now, is how we treat people, is the leadership skill now. And it's almost every organization that I either work with, that I know, that I've come from, they're all going through change, right? In the industries that they're in workforce, and whether that's reductions or even, hiring, whatever it might be. But, and every company has values and things like that, but I don't know if they all live them, right? And so to me, it doesn't matter what your company values are and things like that. It's all great. That's just stuff on a page, right? It's how you show up. If you have that driver of empathy, compassion, kindness, caring, whatever you want to call it, I think you will be far more successful as a leader, but as a person. And that's how we start to shape and change the culture, or the companies and the people that we want to become.
Absolutely. Yes. I think you just touched on something so pivotal. It's, really the way that we treat people, how we show up, and bringing that humanity to the workplace, and just having a well-rounded, approach to people both in and outside of the workplace. That really does make us better humans. And that's so interesting that, you had that post and people had so many insights, because I feel like a lot of times this isn't something that's talked about enough, but it's something so important and something that people are truly, genuinely craving.
Yeah, I think craving is a great word for that. We need it. We need a sense of belonging and care to help us drive, but also thrive as people. And by no means am I perfect at this. It's a constant learning, and having right conversations, and then realizing, boy, that was the wrong approach, and going back and fixing or changing things. But I think that's what makes it exciting, is that we're all on this journey, right? And we're on this journey together. And I think that the big takeaway, hopefully, for people is, it is not a soft skill. It is a critical skill. It's a life. It's human skill. And if we can kind of, put humanity back into the workplace, I think it will drive greater results and success. And that doesn't mean it's just walking around, being all kumbaya. We still have to put in the work, right? But it's the way that we put in the work. It's the thoughts that we use. It's the behaviors that we exhibit. And again, if you have trust, people can call you out too and say, I don't know about that, or hey, we need but you can start to have real conversations, and then together you're just navigating, this place that we call, work or leadership, whatever you want to call it, but you're navigating it with others.
Yes.
And that starts to change, how we show up.
Absolutely. Well, Sean, this has been so insightful, informative, and just, a great conversation to have. I've enjoyed it so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Listen, I just want to thank you, number one, for finding me and inviting me to be here, because it really means a lot to me. And I think together, we have voices that we want people to hear. And I think if I was going to leave, any thoughts for people, it's, everybody has a story. We all come from something, and celebrate that, but then recognize the goodness in people. And, we are more than just employee numbers. We are people. And if we remember that, I think we go a long way.
Definitely. Oh, I love that so much. Well, this has been so great. I could talk to you forever. But thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Jordan. Thank you so much.